When watching the extended edition of The Fellowship of the Ring, fans are treated to some harsh Khuzd-dûl words courtesy of Gimli directed toward Haldir. The phrase is not translated in the film, but giving us a tiny bit of levity after a pretty heavy portion of the film is Aragorn's momentary reaction before he scolds Gimli saying,
"That was not so courteous."
Now, we've seen translations for this phrase pop up online over the years, but what many fans may have missed is that David Sallow, the linguist for the film trilogies, set the record straight a few years ago. He also gave some fascinating behind-the-scenes insight into this moment as well as Thorin's later use of a similar phrase. But today we'll go even farther than that, diving into Neo-Khuzd-dûl to find more great Dwarven zingers. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we're talking about Dwarven insults. As I mentioned in last week's video, Tolkien's dwarves are incredibly secretive about their language of Khuzd-dûl throughout the books. So when it came time for Peter Jackson's films to be made, they needed someone to not only provide lines of dialogue in Elvish, but also Tolkien's less developed languages of Khuzd-dûl and Black Speech. This is where David Sallow came in. Building off of the words that we do know from Khuzd-dûl and Black Speech, Sallow created fleshed out languages that he could then use for lines like Gimli's. These languages are known as Neo-Khuzd-dûl and Neo-Black Speech. Ironically, Gimli's is not a line that David wrote. In his post, he explains his original insult that he came up with was, "A great darkness upon you elves," which in his more recent version of Neo-Khuzd-dûl would read, "Aznan Gabil, Aifna Dumen." This line is definitely not the one Gimli utters, which many fans would hear as Ishkakui, I Durugnul. Even now, you'll find many sources online saying this translates to I spit upon your grave, a translation that's said to come from someone working on the German translation of the film. Spitting upon anyone's grave is certainly not courteous, and perhaps it would be more insulting if said person was not by nature intended to die. However, it turns out that this fairly widely accepted translation is not accurate. For over 10 years, Sallow says he had no idea what Gimli's line in the film meant, nor where the line came from, with some rumors claiming John Rhys-Davies ad-libbed it on set. However, when the time came for the Hobbit films, and the filmmakers were considering Thorin using the same curse in Thranduil's halls, Sallow set to taking care of this issue, reverse engineering the line and using his Neo-Khuzd-dûl grammar and phonology. The line became Ishkakfe, Eid Durugnul, meaning, may my excrement be poured upon the naked-jawed ones. Of course, as all but the most ancient of their kind did not have beards, the naked-jawed ones is a term for elves. And as we see in the second Hobbit film, Balin would seem to agree with Aragorn. This is not so courteous a phrase. An interesting side note here, the films imply that Aragorn has at least some understanding of the Khuzd-dûl language, something even Gandalf doesn't seem to in the books. Before Thorin's reveal to Balin, we see him yell to Thranduil, Imrid Amrad Ursul, meaning, die a fiery death. And as the film version of Thranduil has a previous history with dragons, this likely hits a bit close to home for the Elven King. But some may wonder, why go through all this trouble of working out Gimli's insult? Why not just have Thorin repeat the exact same line and carry on? I think the answer can best be surmised from David's own words about his work on the films, which will surely give fans an even deeper appreciation for the care and attention to detail of both Sallow's work and the films as a whole. Why is there Elvish in the movie? Why did Peter Jackson care enough to strive for some accuracy in the way language is presented? The Elvish in the movie is addressed to the minority of viewers who know something about the languages. And what are they going to want to do when they hear the Elvish sentences? They're going to want to figure out what they mean, and why they mean what they mean. Part of my intention, my particular vision and contribution to this movie, was to create sentences that would be intelligible to the people who study the languages. I'm enormously happy to see some people saying, based on their knowledge of Elvish, great or small, that they recognized and understood some of what they heard on the screen. That's great. That's exactly the kind of effect that I was looking for. Now, we have a clear translation of Gimli and Thorin's lines in the films, as well as a deeper appreciation for Sallow's incredible work. But I wanted to go even further into Dwarven insults. Any self-respecting dwarf, after all, needs more than the same couple lines to throw around in their daily life. For this, I turned to my friend the Dwero Scholar, who lives and breathes Neo Khuzdul, and just so happens to have done some work on this exact topic. We see many dwarves like Gimli, Thorin, and Balin who are quite courteous in their speech throughout the books, and some who are a bit more rude, going so far as to not say please to Bilbo in Bag End. And one of the things I love about Dwero Scholar's approach is that he intentionally seeks to avoid phrases that would feel out of place in Tolkien's world. No simple, real-world crude language here. He notes that it's quite easy to fall into some lazy stereotype of drunken simpletons with a filthy vocabulary, which he labels dwarfs, and instead focuses on dwarves as Tolkien wrote them. Not afraid to insult by any means, but in a far more proper dwarven way. Let's start with some simple ones. Nice and short ones to exclaim at a moment's notice. Lulk, which means idiot, fool, or oaf. Shaik, meaning coward. Latrun, meaning lazy. Targ Ushrab, meaning beard shaver. Rux Unam, meaning orc kisser. Ushrag, meaning liar. Binsalbun, which means useless. Kakafund, meaning dunghill. Sabkun, meaning weakling. Bintargun, which means beardless. And yes, there's a lot of beard-related insults among the dwarves. Rux Ulbab, meaning orc liquor. Zars Hamd Jabul, meaning mushroom brain. But what if you've really got an axe to grind with someone? I mean, Lulk and Binsalbun are great and all, but you really want to get your point across, right? Well, here's some longer phrases for those special occasions. Abrafu Shaik Mashaz, which means descendant of rats. Now this insult is actually one that Thorin says to Bilbo in the Hobbit book, albeit in common tongue. Alaju Mahal, shame of Mahal. As we discussed last week, Mahal is the dwarven name for their creator, Aule, so this should cut pretty deep for fellow dwarves. Kakuf Imbaratrag, which means goat turd. Fana Duznu Targ Uzganul Mime, which means elves have a longer beard than you. And my personal favorite, Makasak Bibmi Labal, which means you couldn't forge a spoon. Now that, my friends, is a sick burn. So whether you want to borrow from Gimli and Thorin, or you want to flex a wider vocabulary in your dwarven insults, now you're all set. And there's plenty more where that came from. I'll share some links in the description to both David Sallow's posts and the insults from the Dwero Scholar. In the meantime, just remember, my friends, Targlo Ma'arnulu Abhar Mazagnulu Hu. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Alvin Einbert, Jeremy Daniel Derby, Madame Director, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Z and N, Evely, Kia, Freya Firestar, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.